I will not bow. I will not break. I will not bend. I will, again, march into this office with all of the individuals who stand by my side, all 800 attorneys, again, defending the Constitution, defending the rule of law, and standing up for New Yorkers and all individuals who believe in our system of government.
Well, one thing that I'll say is I agree with Letitia James whenever she stated that no one is above the law. And what happened here is a grand jury determined that there is sufficient evidence to bring to indictment allegations of mortgage fraud against her. She's going to have her day in court. But listen, what she did against President Trump is entirely different. This is somebody who ran on going after President Trump with every single thing she possibly could, saying that she was going to get his name in the news. She was going to go after him. She was going to do her best to influence the results of the 2024 election by weaponizing the Justice Department. What we're finding out is now she is guilty of similar charges that she was trying to politicize against President Trump, and I think she needs to be held to the same standard. And we'll see what the court decides, but it looks like there is sufficient evidence here to reasonably say that she did indeed commit mortgage fraud, and if she did, she needs to be held to the same standards as anybody else would. I mean, this is somebody who tweeted whenever she was going after President Trump, weaponizing the New York Justice Department against the president, that when powerful people cheat to get better loans, it comes at the expense of hardworking people. She needs to be held to that standard as well.
The Attorney General of the state of New York, Letitia James, has recently been indicted by a grand jury. She's the chief law enforcement officer, remember, of the entire state of New York. And the charges are varied, but they can be boiled down to she bought a property in Maryland, and that property she declared on a federal form to obtain a mortgage and various other considerations that would also state on taxes. She said that in one case would be her principal residence, and another case she said that it would be perhaps a second home and not rented. And as early as 1983, she had applied for an income property where she maybe mistakenly, but she wrongly described the property's square footage and rooms as a rental. And more importantly, she allegedly put her father down as her husband in this 1983 application. So all of this is coming to the fore, and she's been indicted by the federal Trump DOJ, and there's been an outcry. And the issue is not, it doesn't seem to me, she has never said that I never made a mistake on these forms. I was always totally honest. I think her lawyer said she made some errors, but they were insignificant. And by the way, if you're the chief law enforcement officer and Attorney General of New York, you should never be saying anything otherwise that you live in New York. That's by statute. The Attorney General must have her principal residence. There's some indication that she waffled on that as well. So what's going on? The left says this is Donald Trump's revenge tour, that if it was not Letitia James, but it was just some other person, the federal government probably would not have looked at it. That's probably true. But on the other hand, Letitia James, who ran for the Attorney Generalship in 2018, ran expressly on a promise to get then President Donald Trump. She even said, I have my eye on Trump Tower. And by 2022, when she ran for re-election, she ran on a promise to get Donald Trump. It was a racialized campaign. She mentioned his gender, the fact that he was white. She whipped up crowds, and she bragged to Al Sharpton that she was going to get Donald Trump. This was the chief law enforcement officer of New York. So when she filed suit in the courtroom of Judge Engoron, a well-known liberal justice, she got a New York jury to convict Donald Trump, and it was an outrageous settlement. And at one point, the fine was $500 million, $500 million, $500 million. That was a crippling fine, and it was never heard of. And remember, when she did file the suit against Donald Trump, which was eventually challenged and at a higher court and all but thrown out, the gist of the case was that he had overvalued a real estate property and unlawfully filled out forms that inflated the value, even though the Deutsche Bank who had issued the loan had no disagreement about the value of the collateral property, had no problem that the loan was paid on time, if not early, and in full to the profit of the Deutsche Bank. So there were no victims in this. No one was complaining. And yet she pursued it. What can we conclude? On the one hand, let's take the left view very quickly, that this is retribution, it's tit for tat, and if we continue this cycle, we're going to descend into a third world country status, where every time a particular party takes over control of the White House, they're going to punish their predecessors of the other party. That's something that we should worry about. But on the other hand, we saw with Alvin Bragg and Letitia James and Fannie Willis and Jack Smith a miscarriage of justice. We all knew that those charges that these four prosecutors filed, A, would have never been filed had Donald Trump said he was not going to run again. B, they will never be filed against any other politician, no doubt. And C, if Donald Trump just said that he was going to run, but he decided he was a rhino or he was left-wing and he agreed with Letitia James' political views, he probably would have got off. He would never been indicted. And you can ditto the same attitude from Judge Engoron. So do you just let that all slide, or do you look at what Letitia James has allegedly done? It's just simply a question, did she say something in writing on a form that was a lie? And did she do that as the Attorney General of New York? So yes, they probably gave her inordinate attention given what she had done in the past. But on the other hand, you give inordinate attention not just to your political enemies that have hurt you, but more importantly to high officials. If she was a campaign flack, if she was the head of the DNC, it would be one thing. But the Attorney General of New York is the chief law enforcement officer of a huge and important state, and she's got to be above suspicion. And the irony is that in many of the commentaries about this indictment, people are using the very words that she used to remind people that Donald Trump should not be above the law. There's a final question, and that is, how do you end it all? How do you end tit for tat or lawfare against Democrats or Republicans? Do you just allow all of these things that went on? Or do you remind the left that everybody is human, and if you really do want to fabricate charges, you better be above suspicion? Because unlike Donald Trump's Letitia James indictment, this is not involving anywhere the amount of financial loss, her case, but it's a clear-cut case. She either lied on forms or she didn't. If she did, she's culpable, and she should be prosecuted and convicted if she's culpable. In the case of Donald Trump, I don't think anybody, left or right, thought that he had done anything wrong. In fact, some of the properties that he listed were more valuable than even he listed. So is it, when somebody does a wrong, do you forget it and just say, let's move on? Because if we don't move on, we'll enter a cycle of ruinous tit-for-tat lawfare? Or do you say, we're going to hold people responsible who broke the law? And yes, we're going to give inordinate attention for those who wage lawfare, but we're going to stop it and remind people, don't do it, not because we believe that they're moral or that they're virtuous, but because there will be deterrence. And if they know, they being people who use lawfare, know that if they were to do it again, it will boomerang.
On Letitia James, who is out there like I am woman, hear me roar. I feel no fear. I am not afraid. She's loving every minute of this. Great. I hope you do love it, because you're probably going to face an amended complaint sometime soon. She's been indicted by Trump for a Virginia property that they allege she lied about when she applied for her mortgage, saying it was going to be her primary residence, and it never was. It was never her primary residence, and she knew that at the time. They allege that she applied for the mortgage, which would be mortgage fraud. Now the news hits yesterday and today in a pair of reports. Daily Mail yesterday, New York Post today. Daily Mail yesterday reporting that the person living in the allegedly problematic residence is Tish James's grand niece. So I think this is her sister's child, Nakia Thompson, along with Thompson's 3 children. So she's got great grand nieces and nephews. And they're living in this 3-bedroom property in Norfolk, Virginia, and have been since 2020. Daily Mail discovered that Nakia Thompson is officially listed as absconder, an absconder who's being sought by authorities in North Carolina for failing to finish her probation. On the North Carolina website is an appeal for information leading to her whereabouts, along with a mugshot and an offender number. It is 0898340. The communications director for the North Carolina Department of Corrections says Ms. Thompson was sentenced to probation for misdemeanor convictions for assault and battery, and trespassing too, and has willfully avoided probation supervision, and absconder is considered a fugitive. Thompson faces arrest if she's located in North Carolina. So Tish James is accused here of harboring a fugitive at her fraudulently mortgaged Virginia property. In 2005, this grandniece, Nakia, was placed on probation in Forsyth County, North Carolina, simple assault. The following year was handed a suspended sentence for 2 counts of assault against a governmental official. In 2011, she was given a suspended sentence for assault and battery and second-degree trespass, again by a court in Forsyth County. This appears to have been the offense for which Thompson became an absconder. On her Facebook page, she appears to make light of her criminality. One post shows blood spattered on a black background and the words, "Knick-knacks crime, grand larceny," a crime she was actually charged with, reports the Mail. According to her LinkedIn page, she has worked in various jobs, including a debt collections representative, a stalker at Walmart, and a cashier at Wendy's. In 2018, she worked for Tish James's campaign for 4 months as a seasonal representative, reads her profile. Okay, let me just finish this up. Today, in the Daily Mail, get a follow-up piece. New York Post, follow-up piece of sorts, saying Tish James is housing another felon in her other Virginia property, who also is, I believe, a grandniece. Yes, a grandniece. This one is named Kayla Thompson Hairston, and she is, we believe, the sister of our first star, who I just read about, Nakia. OnlyFans is where girls like this, who want to make some extra dough on their bodies, go and pose in nothing or next to nothing, and they can make a lot of money doing that. And that's what Letitia James's grandniece is doing. Kayla, not to be confused with Nakia, the fugitive. Here she is. Here's the Kayla, the other felon, accused felon that she's harboring in her other property. She's 21. She's an OnlyFans star with a public X-rated social media presence. She was charged in April 2024 with lying about her felony criminal record when she tried to buy a gun in Suffolk, Virginia, according to court documents. Mm-hmm. Kayla was legally disqualified from owning a firearm, reports the New York Post, due to an August 2020 felony charge of malicious wounding. What is that, you might ask? Virginia law defines it as a crime in which a person, quote, shoots, stabs, cuts, or wounds any other person, or by any means causes bodily injury with the intent to maim, disfigure, disable, or kill. Since Thompson Harrison was a juvenile at the time, the records are sealed. When she was just 15 years old back in 2019, she was also caught up in the criminal hijinks of her big sister, Nakia. That's the lady at the first property, who is a wanted fugitive by the North Carolina authorities. So somehow she was caught up in Nakia's alleged criminal wrongdoing as well. It sounds like an absolutely lovely family, Victor. Sounds like Letitia James has got all of her ducks in a row, but let's check in on her messaging. SOP 37.
That's all for today. Thank you. If you want global news to keep you up to date on any new developments, please subscribe our channel and forward our content with your friends on social media and email. Thank you very much for keep supporting me. Stay safe, be blessed. Namaste.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.